because I'm still shaking from what happened. I'm 25 years old and have been with my husband, who is 30, since 2018. We have a 3-year-old daughter and a newborn son. But tonight, things almost took a turn for the worse. My husband has always had trouble paying attention, but I never thought it would come to this. Our neighborhood is oddly laid out, with cars zooming by at crazy speeds at all hours of the day. I was folding clothes when I heard our toddler screaming, "Dad, help!" That tone made me drop everything and sprint outside. What I saw made my blood run cold, our newborn in his stroller, careening towards the busy street. I screamed and ran to him, barely stopping the stroller in time. My baby girl's hands and knees were scratched up because she tripped trying to run after the stroller. I snatched up my baby, heart pounding, and scanned for my husband. He wasn't watching. He was chatting with neighbors, completely oblivious. The anger I felt was unlike anything I've ever experienced. I stormed up to him, shouting in disbelief. He looked shocked at first, then realized what almost happened. The apologies and tears came pouring out, but it was too late. I couldn't wrap my head around how he could be so careless, so blind to our toddler's screams and the stroller rolling away. I packed up the kids and left, staying with my parents. They're on my side, but my husband keeps texting, begging for forgiveness, calling it an honest mistake. But I can't shake the terror of almost losing my baby because he couldn't focus for a single second. My baby girl got hurt in the process because he couldn't pay attention. I almost lost my son because he couldn't pay attention. I can't stop crying. I feel so guilty. I wish this all never happened. Sorry it's short. I just want to hold my babies and I can't stop shaking every time I think about it. What if I was just 1 second late? Would I have been planning a funeral? The reason I left the house instead of him was because I hate that house. I don't feel like it is safe for the kids with all the traffic, and I was right. It's my husband's workhouse. I can't be running either. I had a C-section less than 6 weeks ago. A lot of people are saying, why wasn't I watching the kids? I was doing their laundry like a parent. He takes them for walks to have bonding time with them. He literally created this by himself. This has never happened before. How was I supposed to know? And people are saying, why didn't I get him checked out? I'm not his mother. He is 30 years old. I'm sick of people acting like I have to parent my own husband while I literally have a newborn. A toddler. And I'm still healing from a C-section that I tore my stitches from when I ran to get my baby. I don't care if it was his ADHD, the court wouldn't care either. If he had killed my child, he would have gone to prison either way. Relevant comments and additional info from OP1 commenter expressed confusion about the situation, questioning why the baby was in a stroller unattended and how the stroller ended up in the road. They pointed out that most parents have experienced near-death situations with their children due to naivety and overestimating a child's awareness. The commenter acknowledged that the husband seemed remorseful and suggested having a serious talk, possibly considering a move instead of immediately contemplating divorce. OP responded by clarifying that she was inside folding laundry when she heard her toddler scream for help. When she rushed outside, she found her husband chatting with neighbors on their driveway, seemingly oblivious to the situation. OP believes her husband must have left the baby in the stroller unattended near the road, leading to the near-tragic incident. She mentioned that a neighbor offered security footage, which might shed more light on what happened. Another commenter suggested considering her husband's ADHD and the role it might have played in his inattentiveness. They emphasized the importance of understanding ADHD and its impact on behavior and life expectancy. They advised OP to communicate her needs clearly to her husband and seek solutions like medication or lifestyle changes to manage his ADHD better. OP agreed, explaining that she was waiting for the security footage to understand the situation fully. She described her house layout and how she could hear her toddler from the open window in the lounge. When she ran outside, a neighbor's wife was already running toward the stroller, and another neighbor was helping her daughter. OP's husband was just standing there, seemingly in shock. A third commenter expressed horror at the situation and concern for OP's well-being, given that she had just had a baby via C-section. They questioned what her husband was doing and suggested that watching small children near a busy street should be treated with the same vigilance as watching them swim. OP replied that she tore her stitches from the C-section and had to go to the ER. While there, she made sure her daughter got her knees and hands bandaged. OP didn't realize she was bleeding until her mom pointed it out in the car. Her mom took the baby boy back to their house, and her dad took OP and her daughter to the hospital. One commenter was confused about the situation, questioning why the baby was in a stroller unattended and how the stroller ended up in the road. They acknowledged that the husband seemed remorseful and suggested having a serious talk, possibly considering a move, instead of immediately contemplating divorce. OP responded by clarifying that she was inside folding laundry when she heard her toddler scream for help. When she rushed outside, she found her husband chatting with neighbors on their driveway, seemingly oblivious to the situation. OP believes her husband must have left the baby in the stroller unattended near the road, leading to the near-tragic incident. She mentioned that a neighbor offered security footage, which might shed more light on what happened. Another commenter suggested considering her husband's ADHD and the role it might have played in his inattentiveness. They emphasized the importance of understanding ADHD and its impact on behavior and life expectancy. They advised OP to communicate her needs clearly to her husband and seek solutions like medication or lifestyle changes to manage his ADHD better. OP agreed, explaining that she was waiting for the security footage to understand the situation fully. She described her house layout and how she could hear her toddler from the open window in the lounge. When she ran outside, a neighbor's wife was already running toward the stroller, and another neighbor was helping her daughter. OP's husband was just standing there, seemingly in shock. A third commenter expressed horror at the situation and concern for OP's well-being, given that she had just had a baby via C-section. They questioned what her husband was doing and suggested that watching small children near a busy street should be treated with the same vigilance as watching them swim. OP replied that she tore her stitches from the C-section and had to go to the ER. While there, she made sure her daughter got her knees and hands bandaged. OP didn't realize she was bleeding until her mom pointed it out in the car. Her mom took the baby boy back to their house, and her dad took OP and her daughter to the hospital. OP updated 11 hours later. Update. The neighbor's wife sent me the footage, and I really can't just wrap my head around it, so my husband was walking with the stroller and my toddler was in front of them when they passed the neighbor's house. My neighbor was outside, washing his car, and my toddler saw his pet cat and stopped to pet it. So my husband stopped. Left my baby on the road. He didn't even bother locking the wheels and walked all the way up the driveway, not even bothering looking back at the baby. He had his back faced to him for about 5 minutes before the stroller just suddenly started moving. I think it's because the road is on a hill kinda, or it could have been the wind. My toddler never went near the stroller, it couldn't be her. The stroller went down the road and my toddler. That's when she started screaming and running for it when she saw it. The neighbor started running after my daughter when she tripped. He tried to pick her up. That's when the neighbor's wife's car comes into frame and she stops and starts running back to the way the stroller is coming. After that, you can't really see anything because it's all out of frame, but you can hear all the commotion. My husband just stood there the whole time, hand on his head with a blank stare on his face. He didn't even do anything when our toddler was crying from hurting herself. He only started crying when I confronted him. What should I do? I genuinely do not know what to do. I'm panicking. This was never the life I wanted for my kids. I don't understand why he was standing there. I have not even gotten a text or a call from him since I got sent the video. It's just been silent. I just can't get the sound of my daughter's screams. That's the sound that no mother wants to hear. I can't explain at the moment, but it felt like my blood went cold. And I just felt pure fear. I never want to watch the footage again. New update. Went back to my husband after he almost killed our newborn. 19 days later, March 30th, 2024. 19 days later. Hey everyone, I posted here a while back about my husband nearly killing our newborn son. I wanted to give a quick update on the situation. After reading through the comments, I decided to go back to my husband. Many of you pointed out that if I left him, we'd end up with 50-50 custody of our kids, which I couldn't bear. So I made the difficult choice to stay, even though my love for him has faded. My plan now is to tough it out until our kids turn 18, and then leave. I'm terrified of getting pregnant again, especially since I'm not allowed to use birth control or get my tubes tied. My parents, who could offer support, are moving away, leaving me feeling trapped. Despite everything, my husband tries hard to make things right. He still treats me with affection and goes out of his way to create special moments for our family. Seeing him bond with our newborn and our daughter fills me with conflicting emotions. I know I can't stand being with him, but I can't bear to separate him from our kids either. He was so happy when we came back home, but I can't stand even looking at him. I feel some guilt because he still calls me by my nickname, looks at me like I'm the only girl in the world, besides our daughter, and he still continues our traditions, like when the kids are sleeping he will go get ice cream and our favorite snacks and sets up a fort on our bed to watch movies on our laptop. Even though I'm sacrificing my happiness, my priority is ensuring my children's safety and well-being. It's a tough situation, but I'm doing my best to navigate it for the sake of my family. This is a throwaway, so I'm gonna log out. Bye. Update 3. July 16th, 2024, 3 months after OG post. Editor's note, added paragraphs for easier reading. As you can see from my previous post, I did go back to him and it was quite literally the biggest mistake I've ever made, but I felt like I really had no choice. No money, family moved out of state a lot. Has happened the past couple of months, so it turns out my husband started taking meds for his ADHD a couple of weeks before I was due to give birth to our son. He took my kids on a walk to cover up the fact that he was also on meth. He took my kids to meet his dealer, apparently every time they went for a walk. Looking back at the footage now, it makes so much sense because of the way he was talking to the neighbor before everything happened. He was kind of leaning to the side. I talked to my neighbor, and I asked him if he knew that my husband was on drugs. He said he didn't, but he noticed that my husband looked a bit off recently. His wife works at a rehab clinic after a fight where I had to flee with the kids to the neighbor's house. She pointed out that the way he was acting was the way that people acted with drug withdrawal. My neighbor and his wife ended up helping me book a flight to my parents. I'm currently with them right now, and I have spoken to a lawyer that my parents are going to help me pay for. I think all the people from my original post that told me to keep the footage because it is going to come in handy. My husband keeps sending me videos of him shooting up and doing other substances. He keeps saying that they are going to fix him. He sent me a video of him standing in our kids' room, and he was just screaming at me, saying that it helped him cope with his ADHD. He took a knife and stabbed both of our kids' mattresses. I am not going back. He even cut up the side of my bed. There's a comment from my previous post that has been sitting in the back of my mind and has been bugging me. I think you know which one it was. It was by their comment saying I don't care if it was his ADHD, isn't going to fix anything and will probably only make things worse. Talking and thinking about it like he intentionally tried to kill your child isn't helpful either. With ADHD, you sometimes do not register things at all. The life expectancy for those with ADHD is actually significantly lower because many end up, often accidentally, killing themselves. It is not the same thing as carelessness, but learning about ADHD more deeply can help you both be safer. Understanding how my ADHD works and using different precautions, tailored to how my brain functions, has likely saved my life. You should outline what you want from him. That probably includes getting his ADHD better under control, whether through prescription medication or more homeopathic methods. Finding a different place to live if possible, and ensuring he doesn't take your kids out in the front yard without you. Also, it's puzzling that neither he nor the neighbor noticed, but you heard your child from inside. Were the neighbors just watching the stroller roll towards the street? Was your husband on the other side of the house where he couldn't see the stroller? Were you already walking outside as this unfolded? I'm trying to understand better what was happening and why your husband or the neighbor did not notice, but you did from inside. People with ADHD tend to be incredibly good and quick to act in emergency situations, so this is especially strange. I'm not accusing you of leaving anything out but asking you to consider what your husband and the neighbor were doing that neither noticed. That seems suspicious. This is a horrible situation. I lost a pet due to the inattentiveness of ADHD, but I can't imagine losing or even nearly losing a child. What the F? It baffles me that you can even compare losing an animal to losing a child. You made people with ADHD sound completely unreliable for themselves and as if they can't do anything. You made them sound very helpless, and said that the life expectancy thing was completely uncalled for as well. I bet many people with ADHD reading that completely disagreed with you, judging from all the comments and YouTube videos I've seen on my post. I don't know if you're projecting because you lost a pet from your inattentiveness of ADHD, but if you were letting things die in your care, you need to get stronger help. And no, I was not going to lay out what I wanted from him. He's the one that started mixing his meds and was high off his mind every time they went out for a walk. I am not an ableist. I was in a very vulnerable state when I first posted my original message. All I was doing was looking for help and advice, but all I got was "Where were you? And what were you doing? Why weren't you with the kids? Why didn't you get your husband checked out? I was healing from a C-section. Get that through your heads. I genuinely hope that everyone who said something horrible about me and my original post has to get cut open and then, 4 days later, be forced to run down the street. I gave him another chance, like you all said in my original post, and you saw what happened. Stop using ADHD as an excuse. I genuinely believe that if he had killed my child, you would have defended him. And no, I did not know he was on drugs. To all the people who reached out to me, I am forever grateful. All the parents with ADHD who didn't make me feel like it was all my fault and shared their stories with me made me feel seen. I know exactly how it feels. I hope everyone is doing well. To everyone who defended me, I wish I could give you a big hug and send gift baskets. Thank you all from the bottom of my heart, and I am so sorry about that comment that person made. I know you are all not like that. You are genuinely intelligent, judging from all the comments I've read. I cannot thank you enough. And to the one person who sent me that horrible message, I genuinely hope I run into you one day so I can confront you. If you say anything about my daughter or my son one more time, I will track you down. Logging out. Top comments. First comment. Like, I have ADHD and in my first house I taped all the burners in place so I couldn't turn them on, and in my current one I just turned the gas to the stove off completely. Knowing your limitations is a part of playing the cards you're dealt, and there's a good damn reason I'm not having kids. Why the hell would I put myself in charge of a little suicide machine when a lapse of judgment could cost their literal actual life? Second comment. It's possible to do both. Understanding means understanding that the precautions an ADHD person has to take may look different due to how their brain works, or sometimes prioritizing the essential stuff while letting some small things slide. It never means comprising the safety of your children. Like, I have specific routines to ensure I never leave my purse anywhere. It is so essential that I've basically programmed my brain to get anxious if I'm out of the house and don't feel the weight of the crossbody strap on my shoulder. Which also means, for this to work, I'm limited to only owning crossbody bags. That's the looks a little different. I can't just get a clutch and my whole system collapses. It also means that my water bottles are reused pop bottles because sometimes I leave them places. Which is okay, because I'm not spending any money on them. That's me picking my battles. But there is never a solution of just accepting that I'm going to leave my purse somewhere. It's been years and years since I've slipped up. Third comment. Let's be honest, it wasn't ADHD, it was meth and a total disregard for the children's lives. I have ADHD and am the sister of a 10-year-old boy. Even to this day, I have an automatic reaction whenever a kid trips. One eye is always on a small child, especially one that can walk. Babies should always be within arm's reach. No excuses.
Am I the asshole for telling my best friend I don't want to hear about her shitty boyfriend anymore? Hi Reddit, I am feeling really bad about this, and need advice. I, 23, have been friends with my BFF Kayla since we were 11. She is awesome and has supported me through some really tough times, and I have been there for her through a lot of shit too. We have never fallen out, and we always supported each other. Until now. Kayla has been with her boyfriend James for just over 2 years now. I liked him at first. He was good for her. He made her happy, so I was happy. But for the last year or so, every time I have seen or chatted to Kayla, all she has done is complain about him. Some of the stuff she has told me about him is super gross, and I have lost all respect for him, and in turn, I have started losing respect for her. She has also changed a lot since being with him. She used to want to travel the world, explore and experience new things. Now she never leaves her house and wants to be a stay-at-home mother by the time she's 25. It makes me sad to see. She has lost her sparkle. It all came to a head when we went for dinner for my birthday. She spent the whole night complaining about James, as always, telling me way too much personal stuff about him, as always, and just generally moaning. It was after we had finished our meal when I finally snapped and said I don't want to hear any more about her shitty boyfriend, because everything I advise her to do she just ignores and I have nothing left to say to her. I told her she should dump him if she hates him so much, and if she isn't going to dump him then to quit bitching about him all the time because I didn't want to hear it anymore. I had had quite a few glasses of wine and was just feeling super bummed because she made my whole birthday dinner about her and her stupid boyfriend. This was 5 days ago and she hasn't spoken to me since. I messaged her the next morning apologizing and asked her if we could meet up to talk about it, but she hasn't responded. Relevant comments. To a longer YTA comment. OP, thank you for your comment. I do actually agree with you after reflecting. I haven't ever told her that I'm tired of her not taking my advice, and I have never asked her to not complain about him. This was the first time I had challenged her. I have always been very patient with her, and let her complain as much as she wants. This has left me feeling emotionally drained after every time I see her. I should have set boundaries in a calm and mature manner, when I was sober. I was just so annoyed that she made me an entire birthday meal about her relationship issues. I had also just found out that I had got my dream job, and wanted her to be happy for me. I took out my frustration on her and I spoke to her poorly. Thank you. I am going to try and fix it with her top commenter. I mean, you took the nuclear option and drunkenly exploded on her rather than having a civil conversation about how the constant complaining was impacting you and your friendship. Of course she's hurt and pissed off. Not to say she's free and clear of taking over your birthday, but she may honestly have no idea how much she complains or how draining it can be for others. The fact that you have lost respect for her means maybe it's time for the friendship to end. If you don't like her and you don't like being around her, what's the point of the relationship? Don't expect her to forgive you for handling the situation like you did instead of like a real friend would though. Alcohol ultimately didn't make you do this. OP, alcohol didn't make me do this. I did it because I didn't communicate sooner, and I had a lot of pent-up anger. I shouldn't have spoken to her like that and I am going to apologize. Commenter, downvoted. You are the asshole. Get off booze and other drugs. OP. I accept I'm the asshole, but if I want to have a few glasses of wine on my birthday, that is my prerogative. I don't do drugs, and I am over the legal drinking age. I had 3 glasses of wine. On my birthday. Commenter, NTA, the best thing you can do is let her be right now. When she's ready to talk she will reach out to you. OP. I'm worried that if I let her be, she will never reach out and I will lose her as a friend. I don't want to lose her, despite her frustrating me with constantly talking about her boyfriend. She is a good person. I was thinking of writing her a letter to apologize and explain how I feel. IDK. Commenter, a letter may be a good idea, especially if she has blocked you on social media or is avoiding your messages. Do you have any mutual friends willing to tell Kayla how you feel? OP? She hasn't blocked me, but she has already ignored one message, so I feel like she would just keep ignoring me. All of our mutual friends have dropped her because they can't deal with her complaining. They're all telling me to unfriend her, but I'm not ready to do that. Commenter. Is the relationship just bad, or is it abusive? Not acting like her usual self, her spark is gone. Those are red flags. If it is an abusive relationship, and emotional abuse very much is abuse, then make sure to leave the door open for her to contact you when she's ready to leave. Abusers isolate and control their victims, and cutting off friends and family is part of the goal. If the support system is gone, it's harder to leave. So tell her that you will always be there for her if she decides to leave him. That does not mean you have to keep listening to her. Tell her that you are done hearing about this guy and set whatever boundaries you need, but tell her that when she is ready to leave him, you are there for her. OP, it isn't abusive. If anything, she's not very nice to him. She doesn't like the guy. I don't know why she stays with him. She struggles with her mental health, and he is a very lazy guy, so encourages her to stay in bed all day. He isn't what she needs, but he isn't abusive. Who paid for dinner? OP, I paid. It did need to be said, but not in the way it was. I want to apologize for the way I say it, not for how I feel. Commenter, so let me get this straight. Your best friend of 12 years goes to your birthday dinner empty-handed and you pay for it. She spends the whole night making it about herself and her stupid BF, and it got you to the point of yelling at her, rightfully so, and now she's giving you the cold shoulder. This girl is not your friend, she's a user. This is not a friendship worth having. IDC what financial situation is, if it's your BFF birthday, you make it work. It's not about money, it's about effort. If she truly couldn't afford to go out, then she could have made you dinner and a birthday cake and bought a $2 bottle of wine. OP, yeah, I guess that's true. I told her not to get me anything because she's broke. I wasn't expecting anything, but I was expecting her to at least ask me how I am, instead of just talking about her boyfriend. IDK Update 1. Edit. Thank you all for your comments. I can see you're all very divided about if I'm the asshole or not, and I get why. I have accepted that I am the asshole for going nuclear when drunk, and I know I should have spoken to her in a mature and calm manner way earlier than I did. She shouldn't have ruined my birthday dinner, but she is struggling. She didn't deserve to be spoken to like that. I have decided to write her a letter apologizing for the way I spoke to her. I am going to write, very nicely, that I still stand by what I said and that I love her, but hearing her complain repeatedly about the same issue without taking advice is very draining. I'm going to tell her I want to still be friends and that I don't want this to ruin our friendship. I will also recommend she goes back to therapy. She had a therapist in high school but ghosted her. If she then reads my letter and decides to end the friendship, then that is up to her. I will be sad, but everything happens for a reason. Right. Update 2. Firstly, thank you so much for everyone who commented and messaged me. Nice or not, it was great to get everyone's opinion. So I wrote Kayla a letter, like I said I was going to in my edit. It felt very formal and weird to do, but for some reason doing it over text felt wrong. I wanted her to know I'm sincere. I said that I love her, and I value our friendship extensively, and apologized for the way I spoke to her. I said alcohol wasn't to blame. I was. I spoke to her like an asshole and she didn't deserve it. I wrote that I have felt frustrated about the situation for a long time now, because it upset me seeing her so frustrated and upset all the time with the person who is supposed to cherish and respect her the most. I told her that I wholeheartedly believe that she should end the relationship. I said I knew this wasn't my place to say, and that she didn't need to take my advice and that I would support her in whatever decision she made. But if she decided to stay with him, I need her to stop complaining to me about James and their relationship because it was too draining for me to hear it. I said of course she could talk to me about anything major, but hearing the same complaints on an almost daily basis was exhausting, especially when she wouldn't take or even listen to any advice. I made sure to tell her I loved her and I apologized again. I actually apologized 4 times in the letter. I put it through her front door the day after I posted here. She called me yesterday and asked to meet. I went round to her place last night and we talked for just over 2 hours. She told me she actually broke up with James the day after my birthday. Apparently me snapping at her about it shocked her into realizing how often she was upset by him and how much she complained. She has spent the last few days processing everything, So that's why I hadn't heard from her, which is so valid. She actually thanked me for doing it, which is crazy. She said although I was a bit of an asshole, it was what she needed to hear. We both cried a lot and hugged it out and then watched 90 Day Fiancé LOL. I think it's safe to say we will be okay. She is obviously struggling because she is grieving their relationship and breakups are awful. But I will support her through this, like I always do, because I know that she will support me when I next get my heart broken. I am single AF right now, but who knows what the future holds. So the TLDR is that me snapping at my best friend at my birthday dinner for complaining about her boyfriend for the whole meal caused her to dump him. I didn't lose the friendship, I actually got my best friend back. I can't wait to support her while she finds herself again. Thank you all again, have a great day everyone. Am I the A for ruining my best friend's wedding and losing our friendship because I wore a gold dress to the ceremony? I will link the dress. I put gold in quotation marks because I think it's more bronze orange, but maybe I'm splitting hairs and AMTA. Some context. My 30F best friend Dan, 30M, got married to Lauren, 27F, yesterday. Dan and I have been best friends since high school, and despite always being platonic with no romantic interests on either side, his now wife Lauren has always disliked me. In their 3 years of dating I have not been allowed to see Dan alone because she feels that it's suspicious that I want to hang out with him. Honestly, I just missed my friend. Despite me being happily married, she's always kept me at arm's length. I always figured this was because she's from a very conservative family. Dan has spoken to her multiple times and after she'll back off for a bit before reverting to complaining about him being friends with a girl again. It's not ideal, but she makes Dan happy, so I made my peace with it. That brings us to the wedding. Originally I was going to be in the groom's party, but Lauren ended up crying saying a wedding is not a place to swap gender roles. Dan was fighting her on this, but I told him I'll just attend as a guest, and not to choose this hill to die on. The dress code was warm tone garden party, and we were encouraged to wear earthy warm colors. I picked out a bronze/orange dress that I thought fit this perfectly, and the style even matched some examples they gave. In short, I thought I had nailed it. The wedding went great, however at the reception Lauren dragged me aside and said, "I cannot believe you would wear gold to my wedding. You're not the first prize, you're just *** king trashy." I was so shocked the moment I just stared at her. She practically screamed at me to leave and she was drawing attention, so I grabbed my husband, said goodbye to Dan and left. Dan reached out after and told me he was upset I left his wedding so soon. Lauren's mom has texted me saying I ruined the wedding for her daughter and I'm stupid for wearing a gold dress. She's saying it's as bad as wearing white. I was genuinely not aware this was a thing. I want to reach out to Dan to explain, but I don't know if I'm in the wrong here. AITA, relevant comments. Any chance you or Dan have a crush on each other? I am happily married, and Dan and I would rather eat glass than have anything romantic happen between us. We are just not each other's type and see each other as siblings. I genuinely don't think Dan has ever secretly liked me either. Commenter, downvoted. While I believe you, I have to think Dan has made comments about you around his wife for her to go so nuclear on you. Not to be weird, but how would you rate your attractiveness compared with hers? Are you similar or is there a big gap in your attractiveness? OP, that's hard to answer, we are two totally different people. I think we are both attractive in our own way. I am your Barbie stereotype 5'11", blonde hair with a six-pack. She's a petite brunette bombshell with a beautiful tan and a full figure. I'm also a good 2 inches taller than Dan, hence he's not my type, I'm not his. So it's comparing apples and oranges. But I do get your point. Commenter, have you and Dan ever had a convo about why you aren't allowed to be alone with him? OP, not just me but any woman. She doesn't believe in platonic friendships with the opposite sex. Why does Lauren's mom have your number? Can't you just forward that message to Dan? My guess is the group chat from the hens party. Lauren didn't have bridesmaids and her mom organized the hens night with a group text chat. Honestly, my husband told me they were acting crazy. I just needed an outside opinion before I called Dan, so hubby said I should post here. How were you going to be a part of the groom's party if she didn't have any bridesmaids? She technically had her mom as a MOH figure, I guess. She stood up there with her and organized the hens party. But they were just going to go with unequal numbers, and in the end, he just had his brother there with him. Update. Wow guys, I genuinely didn't know what to expect posting to strangers on this, but I am so thankful to my husband for suggesting this. I needed a non-biased view on this wearing gold to a wedding issue, and now it's clear that that was never the issue. Many of you asked if the dress I wore stood out, and honestly I know I'm biased saying this, but I genuinely don't think so. Another girl was wearing the exact same dress but in a dark red, which we had a laugh about. Slip dresses are a pretty common wedding guest dress where I am, and it was the type of dress that was recommended by the bride. I think many of you were right in saying that it was never about the dress, but how I looked wearing it. I do want to start this update by thanking my husband who suggested I post here and having a ball reading your comments since posting, and even posting a photo of us this morning with a caption along the lines of "my gold prize of a wife, I am winning in life thanks to you." Turns out Dan found out pretty quickly what actually happened and called me last night. Apparently Lauren's mom had told him I was really drunk and told Lauren her dress wasn't it, so I was requested to leave. Dan had his suspicions that it was bullsh*t, but it wasn't until his mum called him that confirmed it. Turns out she was nearby when Lauren pulled me aside and ironically was actually wearing a yellow gold dress and tore him a new one about letting Lauren treat me like that. Dan didn't have a solution when he called. I could tell he was emotionally exhausted and pretty defeated. He said he wished I had taken it out on the open bar rather than leaving, but he understood why I left. He thanked me for taking the high road and that it hasn't gone unnoticed. He apologized for what happened. Apparently this is an ongoing fight between him and Lauren. For all of those who said Lauren just hates me, it turns out it's 100% true. Apparently, she has been trying to convince Dan to cut me off because that's what a good husband does. He said he thought she had gotten over it now that they were married. I told him that he needs to focus on his happiness and that I will always be here to support him and that I will take a step back if that's what he needs. They were supposed to leave for their honeymoon yesterday. But when Dan called they were still at home, so who knows? I've blocked Lauren and her mum and forwarded the messages to Dan as recommended. Thanks again everyone for your comments and judgment. New update. So, it's been a couple of months and a bit has happened. The situation seemed to resonate with quite a few people, so I thought I would provide a final update. Thank you to everyone who has messaged, it did help me feel a little less crazy during this time. And to the person who let me know I can simply post an update here, thank you, I had no idea how this all worked. So, Lauren ended up finding the post on TikTok and was understandably pissed. She called me from Dan's phone and started screaming at me, saying I had ruined her wedding and that I knew what I was doing wearing a dress like that to the wedding. After the initial shock of expecting Dan and getting Lauren screaming, I yelled, "What kind of dress? The same cut that Amy wore? Someone else has worn the same dress but in a different color. F***ck, I just can't win with you? Dress nicely and I'm out to get you. Dress casually and I'm taking the P***ss. I've tried so hard with you but I'm done." And hung up. I messaged Dan, I clearly can't be in your life with everything the way it is right now. Good luck, I'll always be a call away. Before blocking the number, which broke my heart. That was 3 months ago and I didn't hear anything except from Dan's mother saying Lauren wouldn't stop complaining about me, and life continued. In this time I also discovered I'm pregnant. Me and hubby made a post a couple of weeks ago announcing this, which is on its way to Dan, turned up at my front door a few days after. We talked over many drinks on his end and mocktails on mine. He told me that he always thought it was the right thing to do to listen to your partner's boundaries and insecurities, and that Lauren has a lot of body image issues which resulted in her being suspicious of other women, so he thought the right thing was to support her, but he got lost in setting his own boundaries when it came to how she controlled his interactions with his friends. He said the whole situation forced him to think about her boundaries and her own personal standards, and saw that they consistently contradict each other. Like, she believes, rightly so, that women are allowed to wear whatever they feel comfortable in, but she would complain that I was unreasonable for wearing bikinis to family beach days because it was inappropriate. Dan also realized she was trying to cut out his sister, and literally every woman in his life, including his boss, insisting he get another job. By the time he had heard about my pregnancy, he told me he didn't want to be an absent friend through this and so had a serious conversation with Lauren. I won't go into details, but the result was that they are currently separated and both in therapy. Dan asked Lauren to move out and she is currently staying with her mum, who is apparently convinced I'm the devil. Whilst I am sad for Dan's relationship having to end like this, I am happy to see that he is starting to learn what a healthy relationship is and that he will be able to be my friend through my pregnancy. My husband is excited to have his gaming buddy back. I reached out to Lauren with Dan's permission, letting her know I'm here to talk in a therapy session if she felt like it would help, but I haven't received a response yet, and maybe that's for the best. I can't help but feel bad on some days, because I know that a lot of this is born from insecurity. But I'm trying to focus on the positives that both of them are in therapy, and hopefully we'll move on to bigger and better things. I'm sorry if this update is a bit scattered as well. Pregnancy brain has been hitting me hard. This update has been read and approved by Dan. OP's comment, "Thank you, we are very excited. And while I can't talk to Lauren's motivations, I do agree that whatever issues you are going through are not an excuse to push unfair boundaries. I am in awe of Dan's strength that he has shown in the last couple of weeks. If they continue their relationship, I know it will be on better terms for both of them."
Concerned my autism evaluation will be ruined tomorrow. Due to my mom's inconsistent stories and lack of support, affecting my diagnosis and future. I am 17 years old, assigned female at birth, and my mom is about 49 years old. Tomorrow is my diagnostic appointment and my mom is required to come with me so the doctors can ask her a few questions about my childhood. Here is why I am scared. My mom believes that I am just doing this because I am paranoid and trying to pick as many mental illnesses as possible. Even though I have clarified to her that I have been doing research for years. When I begged her to do some research on it herself, she refused. She literally just refused. Why? She is not bothered to educate herself. This annoyed me, but I thought it did not really matter. Or so I thought. My mom has been progressively changing things about my childhood. In the last few months I asked her when I started speaking, and she replied about 4 years old, which is what she told me for most of my life. In the past few weeks, I asked her again, since the doctor asked me about it. She said, I do not remember, maybe like 1 to 2 years old. That is wildly different from what she said earlier. The same thing happened when I asked her about my vocabulary. Before, it was just a few words at most. Now it is advanced vocabulary. This evening, I was telling her to please tell the truth. I do not care what the truth is, just say it. She replied with, I will say whatever comes to my mind. I am so upset right now. I am getting an anxiety attack in my room and crying right now. If my chances of getting a diagnosis get ruined because of her, because she is not being truthful, I am going to cry my eyes out of their sockets. I still have an entire childhood case history to fill in. I cannot because she refuses to and changes everything up literally twice or thrice for the exact same question. What should I do? Should I tell the doctor about this? What do I even say? I am panicking so much. What if they completely dismiss me because she lies? Or what if they misdiagnose me? Please give me some advice, I really need it right now. Top comments. Comment 1. I'm sorry that you're feeling so anxious about tomorrow. I can imagine that the test itself already impacts you, and having such a worry on top of it sounds really stressful. My experience having been diagnosed with ADHD and autism is that the doctor or specialist didn't only take into account what my mom said, but also her attitude during the conversation, the interaction between us, and how I responded both mentally and physically. I think that it could be worth expressing to your doctor that you worry about your mom's answers. But I'd also expect your doctor to look beyond the answers and pay attention to other signs that are relevant for the diagnosis. OP, I am planning to inform them, since this is really getting out of hand. Hopefully, the professional will focus on this too. Well, I'm not expecting to make eye contact while talking anyway, lol. Thank you for your comments and advice. Being supported through this means so much to me. Comment 1, you're welcome. And the best of luck tomorrow. I'm crossing my fingers for you. OP, thank you so much for your kindness. Words can't describe how much I appreciate your support. I'm a bit nervous, but hopefully, everything goes well. Comment 2, I would share your concerns with your doctor, perhaps even print your post here and give it to them because it is pretty clearly stated. I don't know if you have any other diagnoses, but you are welcome to share this with her. I am nearly 50, 48 next month. I received multiple inaccurate diagnoses since I was around 9 years old. It caused a lot of unnecessary struggles and stigmatization, to say the least. When I finally got the right one of autism, everything fell into place and now the full picture of my past made sense. It effectively replaced the other diagnoses since, now that my issues were seen as a whole, there were no longer singular diagnosis terms that only applied to a fraction of what was happening. Yes, I can still have some depression and symptoms of CPTSD, but they largely fall under the umbrella of autism. So rather than gathering diagnoses, I finally got the right one. And it has changed my life for the better. Update. I have had my autism evaluation, and I am proud to say that this went better than I could have ever expected. I had my autism evaluation today, and the doctors have concluded that I am autistic. This means so much to me. It's unbelievable. It's still strange because it doesn't change much, since I was already self-diagnosed, but hey, at least it can help me out in university. This morning, I woke up at 7 a.m., left the house at 8:45, and arrived just in time. I had 2 professionals evaluate me, which was nerve-wracking, to say the least, but I couldn't ask for more. The first 40 minutes were spent asking me questions and getting me to do certain activities, including one involving a bizarre book about floating toads. I still don't understand it, lol. For the last 20 minutes, they asked my mom to come in with the interpreter, as we are immigrants and her English isn't that good. I took the advice you all gave me yesterday, and before they invited her in, I informed them that she might not remember all the details and that my masking at home might affect some of what she says. They reassured me that this was not as important as the conversations we had just had. They proceeded to inform my mom that I am highly likely to be autistic. My mom, unfortunately, decided that the first thing she should say was, "My daughter doesn't have autism, she thinks she does." The doctors were immediately taken aback. She was supposed to sit there and answer questions, which was the whole reason she came in, but after saying that, they didn't even ask her one question. All of my childhood case history was handed over to me, and I did all of the talking. I can't believe that this has finally happened. I've been fighting for a diagnosis for almost 4 years and waited about a year for this appointment. I am so happy now. Thanks to everyone who gave me advice and supported me yesterday. The love I was shown was so sweet, And I could never have been this understood by anyone other than you. I cannot stress how thankful I am that you took time out of your day to help me out. I sincerely thank everyone from the depth of my heart. You're all amazing people. I would also like to apologize for using the term autism diagnosis, as it was brought to my attention yesterday that it is not appropriate terminology. From now on, I will refer to it as an autism evaluation. Thank you very much to the user who highlighted this. I have shared this post with other subreddits, so some of the information mentioned may not completely refer to this subreddit. If there are any specific details I should remove, please inform me. Thank you. Smile. Highlighted comments. Comment 1. Aw, I am so happy that it went well and you were supported and listened to. You used the correct terminology. You had an evaluation assessment which led to you receiving a diagnosis of autism. I truly hope you are now able to get the proper support you need and deserve. How did your mom react to all of this? Is she being more supportive and understanding? And I really need to hear more about these floating frogs. LOL. OP, thank you so much for your support. I appreciate all the kind words. I'm happy that I finally managed to get one so it can help me out later in life. My mom acted as she always acts when she's proven wrong. She went silent and changed the topic. She's never the one to accept that she isn't in the right, but at least she was visibly embarrassed for not doing her research. LOL. About the book, it was one of the weirdest books I've read. Every page had mostly drawings with very few words every few pages. I think it's used to test creativity, but I just couldn't help but be confused the whole time. LOL. Comment 2. I'm currently in a very similar situation. I have my results appointment today for my assessment that was over a month ago. My doctor wanted both my parents to do a couple of questionnaires about me before making his full diagnosis. I told him my dad would do it, but I only saw him for less than 2 months every year and that my mom didn't believe my ADHD diagnosis from when I was 20 and would probably not be useful to ask her. When I asked my mom to do her questionnaire, it was worse than I had thought it would be. She again denied my ADHD diagnosis, which my current doctor said my recent assessment actually reconfirmed it, denied that I could possibly be autistic, and claimed to know me and my brain better than I do. She also dead-named me twice during the call. I'm trans. Haven't talked to my mom since then, and it's been over a month. She never did the questionnaires. I'm really nervous about my appointment today, honestly. I am really glad to see you had a good outcome though, and don't mean to derail your post, I just really related to it. OP, I'm very sorry you had to go through this. It's one of the most horrible feelings. And your mom is a huge, excuse my language, jerk for dead-naming you and refusing to cooperate. Honestly, why is it so hard to be a decent mom? I hope your appointment went well, and I apologize for my late reply. I hope your dad helped you out and that the doctor was understanding. Update me if you can. Relevant comments. Comment 1. In my case, I was told that I would need someone who had lived with me to participate, either a spouse or my parents. I've never cohabitated with a partner long-term, and unfortunately, my folks aren't really an option because the fact that I'm pursuing an evaluation infuriates my mother for some reason. An acquaintance did see a specialist who didn't require a third party to participate. I just need to see if there's anyone local to me who can do the same. Comment 2. I hate this. ADHD has a similar problem in that the diagnostic criteria are mostly based on how much you inconvenience the people around you. I look forward to a time when we've got the resources to evaluate neurodivergence based on first-person accounts of our own experience. Comment 3. The frustrating thing is that in our initial appointment, the specialist was clear that I really matched the way ADHD commonly manifests in women. But then when I couldn't get my parents on board, she couldn't diagnose me. I know not all providers require third-party involvement because I know someone who got a diagnosis at such a provider. Unfortunately, they are located on the other side of the state, and their website advises that evaluations typically take 2 days. So I would need to take a couple of days off work to do that. Comment 4. For the sake of offering a different experience, I will say my ADHD diagnosis did not include either of my parents at all. I answered questions based on my own memories of childhood, and that was adequate. The fact that I don't remember much of it was also taken into consideration. Any mental health professional who doesn't recognize or make accommodations for estranged children of unsupportive parents probably shouldn't be in their field. Comment 5. I won't go into the backstory of why I did it, but right before my son was diagnosed with severe ADHD at age 6, I brought him out of a meltdown with a frappuccino loaded with extra shots. Stimulants are the frontline treatment for ADHD. If you find that steadies you, it could be useful evidence. To this day, he uses energy drinks as a sleep aid, something I'm told is not unusual among ADHDers. Reply: thanks for the tip. I actually had a consultation with a specialist a few years back, who told me that what I reported was very consistent with the way ADHD commonly presents in women. Unfortunately, I learned that my parents were required to fill out an evaluation survey. I brought it up to my parents, and my mother reacted with a level of anger that caught me off guard. Like OP, I worried that if I proceeded, she'd make sure to sabotage my chance to get a diagnosis. Not to mention I didn't want to deal with the ongoing conflict. So I really need to call around and find a provider that won't require my middle-aged self to involve my elderly parents. But it all just feels like a big deal at this point, so I haven't. Comment 6. When I had my first evaluation in my 30s, the psychiatrist asked me if I had ever tried cocaine. I shot him a surprised look and said, "No, why would you ask that?" And then he proceeded to tell me that if I had, and had found it calming, that would have been another sign that I had ADHD. Anecdotally, I'm one of the very few people that I know who has never gotten into drinking coffee as a morning beverage. It doesn't wake me up. Comment 7. I was able to be evaluated without someone else needing to vouch for my childhood experiences. They just believed me when I talked about them. While you might want a parent to remember some details, things like, "I often sat on my hands as a kid because otherwise I would fidget too much," were enough for them to go on. For reference, I was 27 when I was diagnosed. My insurance didn't require a reference to a psychiatrist for evaluation, so I was able to research someone that specializes in ADHD and go straight to them. My friends that had to go through their physicians told me the process was much more frustrating. Yay, healthcare. Comment 8. I hate this mindset so much. Like it's okay to have a child with autism. By refusing to acknowledge that, you're making your child's life so much harder. You could be getting them help, and early intervention will help your child adapt so much easier than refusing to believe they could be anything but neurotypical. I just hate that mindset so much. Comment 9. When I was a child, my teachers kept talking about how I was unfocused, so much so that they suggested a visit to a psychologist. I never did my homework, to the point that it was a massive source of stress. Almost every week, my mother had to come to school and bring me something I had forgotten at home. Every time I got a present that was on the smaller side, I knew it would eventually get lost. Everybody knew it. Sometimes I get so focused on things that my parents get annoyed because I just won't hear them. I consistently forgot to make them sign things and they were constantly annoyed with it. Talk about the old days and they will be the ones telling you all of these things, but when I FaceTime them to complete the personal history section of the ADHD form given to me by the psychologist, suddenly I was a model child who literally never lost anything. If I did, well, that's what children do. It's normal. Everybody is a genius in the things they like and a complete and utter disaster in what they aren't interested in. Anyway, it turns out I have ADHD. Comment 10. I have a cousin who is autistic and wasn't diagnosed until he was in his 20s. Whenever he was evaluated as a child, his school district would call an autism diagnosis into question and would have them go to their psychologists. Unfortunately, it turns out that the school district was basically trying to get the family to avoid pushing for an autism diagnosis because that would have meant he was entitled to more accommodations and funding from the district. Reply: how unusual. As teachers, we usually support them getting evaluated as there is then funding for more accommodations and support for one more student in the classroom. That funding can lift the entire class. Am I the A for resuming my career and leaving my husband to handle his autistic niece after he unilaterally made me her primary caregiver? Originally posted 1 month ago, my husband, who is 30 years old, became the legal guardian of his 17-year-old niece 2 months ago, following the loss of her single mother last year. Initially my in-laws took her in, but due to their age, it became too challenging for them to care for her. As a result, my husband stepped in as her guardian despite my reservations. He assured me that he would handle all her care responsibilities. We got married a year ago after dating for 15 years. I had a very successful career in a demanding field, both physically and mentally, which required a lot of travel. We planned to start a family, and I agreed to become a stay-at-home mom. I quit my job a few months into our marriage when I became pregnant. But unfortunately, I had a miscarriage. Shortly after, his sister passed away, putting all our plans on hold. During this time, I took on a part-time job in a related field that allows me to work remotely, so I would not be bored. My sister-in-law was a nurse who left her job to care for her daughter full-time. Her daughter faces multiple challenges, including nonverbal autism, various developmental disorders like dyslexia, and severe sensory issues. My husband claims that he handles most of the caregiving responsibilities, but the reality is quite different. Since I work part-time from home, most of the caregiving duties fall to me. His niece often gets angry and has frequent meltdowns. She dislikes the food I prepare, and she usually ends up throwing it on the floor or at me. It has become emotionally exhausting, and I am at my wit's end. On December 15th, my husband was working late and asked me to take care of dinner. She is extremely picky about food, and even the slightest change in texture or taste can trigger a meltdown. That night she threw her plate at my feet, causing me to bleed. I called my husband, demanding that he come home immediately, but he said he couldn't. I retreated to my room, telling him I could no longer handle the situation. When he finally returned hours later, she was still crying, and he was furious with me. He called me heartless and irresponsible. I responded that I was fed up with both of their ungrateful behavior, and informed him that I was going to stay with my mother until New Year's. My husband panicked and tried to apologize, but I left anyway. He called me every day pleading for me to come back. When I eventually returned, he told me that my departure had forced him to use all his available leave to stay home with her. He said he was glad I was back. I then informed him that I had contacted my former company and secured my old job, which would start the following Monday. The job requires me to work in the office and involves a lot of travel. He asked who would stay home with his niece since she cannot be left alone, he has no more leave, and full-time caretakers are too expensive. I reminded him that he had promised to handle everything when he became her guardian, so it was his responsibility. As you might expect, my family supports my decision, while his family believes I am being extremely selfish. Therefore I am seeking judgment from impartial strangers. Am I the A in this situation? Update posted today. Many people have been messaging me for an update, so here it is. Unfortunately, I cannot say things have improved. My husband took a few days off work to interview special needs nannies and caretakers. Eventually he found a well-qualified and experienced person for the job, hiring her to work from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. on weekdays. One day, the nanny had an emergency and informed us she could not come in for a couple of days. My husband had an important meeting that he could not miss and asked me to take care of his niece for the day. I refused. In response, he took my car keys while I was getting ready and left before I noticed, effectively preventing me from going to work. This behavior reminded me of my narcissistic, gaslighting father who often did similar things. I told my husband that he had 1 hour to return home, or I would call Child Protective Services. Once CPS arrived, I planned to call a cab to get to work. He eventually returned home, leading to a significant argument. I warned him that if he ever did something like this again, I would leave and never look back. He apologized, saying he acted out of desperation. The worst happened 2 weeks ago. I needed to travel for work for a couple of weeks, and I could not find my passport. Being a very organized person, I knew I had not misplaced it. I ended up calling the non-emergency helpline. They searched the house thoroughly and found the passports hidden in his gym bag. Since it is a crime to steal passports, they asked me if I wanted to press charges. I decided not to press charges, which led to another argument. He told me that he needed me at home that weekend due to a social welfare visit and knew that I would not stay even if he had asked me. In response, I kicked both him and his niece out of my house and told him I would call the police if he came near me again. Fortunately, my house is a premarital asset. I informed him that I would be filing for divorce. The welfare visit turned into a disaster as neither of them were living there when the worker arrived, and the social worker was also aware of the recent call to the non-emergency helpline. So, all in all, she was not impressed with our bullshit. He came by 2 days ago and told me that he ended up moving in with his parents. They live in a small 2-bedroom apartment, which does not meet the welfare requirements. He asked me for another chance and if I would consider letting him and his niece stay until they figure things out. Otherwise, she would have to go into state care. He explained that he cannot afford rent and a carer and begged for my help. I told him that I could never forgive him for what he did. He knew about my past with my father, yet he still went ahead and did it. He suggested that they could move back in, and that we could work on our issues through couples counseling. I told him that I could never trust him again and that our relationship was over. He then asked if I would give him another chance if his parents took in the niece or if he relinquished her care to the state. At that point, months' worth of anger burst out. I told him that the problem between us was not his niece, but actually him. He did not ask me before taking her in and did nothing to help. He dismissed my concerns whenever I felt burnt out. He took on a responsibility without consulting me and then dumped it all on me. He chose to take my keys and hide my passport. I told him things could have been different. He, his niece and I might have adapted and become a family if he had not made the wrong choices at every turn, at my expense. I told him to get out of my house, that it was over, and that I never want to see any of them ever again. I still do not know if what I am doing is right or wrong. I know people wanted some sort of happy ending, but it is what it is. I have not started the divorce proceedings yet, but I will soon. For now, I am taking a break as it has been a very emotional and draining couple of weeks. Relevant comment. One commenter shared that she has 2 children of her own, and is a single mother. Her parents also have 2 small adopted children, who are closely related to their family, and have been with them most of their lives. When she began dating her current boyfriend, she made it clear from the beginning that she essentially has 4 children. She explained that if something were to happen to her parents, she would take custody of her siblings. She had helped raise these kids since birth, acting as a third parent alongside her mom, taking on many parental responsibilities. This was non-negotiable for her, and she discussed it with her boyfriend before they got serious. She gave him time to consider if he was prepared to take on the responsibility of 4 children. This is how adults handle such situations. They discuss and ensure both parties are on the same page rather than assuming responsibilities and dumping them on their partner without warning. Reply to the comment. Exactly. You took the time to communicate it, and he knew before getting involved with you. You did not just dump the kids on him and expect him to deal with it. Commenter response. And if he had not been okay with it, we would have figured out the best plan. This husband expected her to drop everything to care for his niece, who seemed to need more care than OP could provide, given her severe meltdowns. It is not a reflection on OP, but you cannot throw someone into such a situation and expect them to manage. Both OP and the niece deserve better. Another commenter. It does not matter. It is not OP's responsibility. Raising a child is a huge commitment, especially a special needs autistic child with violent outbursts. Not everyone is equipped or should be expected to handle that alone. Even if no other family was available to help and the parents could not take custody, they could still assist. They did not. Additional comment. It is a lack of empathy. They recognize that family members may have valid reasons for not taking in a special needs child who will need lifelong care. However, they do not understand that others have their own lives and needs. If anyone's needs negatively impact them, they perceive it as selfishness. To these people, everyone else is an NPC, existing only to serve their needs. Another perspective. For me, this was actually the happy ending I was hoping for. It was clear who the real problem was in this story, and I am glad she kicked him out. Edit. It always amazes me how partners ignore every complaint and plead for help or change. Then, when it is too late, they suddenly agree to make all the concessions they previously refused. Why do they only do that in the find out phase and not in the fucked around phase when there is still a chance to salvage the situation? Comment on familial pressure. Familial pressure, a sense of duty, and the desire to be a hero can influence decisions. In theory, it is admirable for someone to want to take care of a family. State care often has a poor reputation, and it is understandable to be concerned about the level of care a disabled family member would receive from the state. The problem is that he never discussed any of this with his wife, made a unilateral decision, and then made it his wife's problem. It is easy to be the hero when someone else is making all the sacrifices. He pleased his parents and took the glory of being the stand-up guy while his wife did all the actual work of raising his niece. Comment on social services expectations. In most areas, social services expect the child to have their own room. If it was just the in-laws and the niece, it would have been fine, with the in-laws in one bedroom and the niece in the second. The problem arose when OP's husband moved in, leaving insufficient room. OP mentioned that the in-laws did take in the niece after her mother passed away, but they could not handle her due to their age and handed her off to their son. Everyone knew caring for the niece would be a significant challenge, but they were willing to ignore it as long as OP was dealing with it. In my opinion, the main issue in this story revolves around the tension and family conflict that arose when the husband unilaterally decided to become the legal guardian of his autistic niece without consulting his wife. This decision led to significant stress and disagreements within the family. One key detail worth discussing is the husband's unilateral decision. Making such a significant decision without consulting his spouse highlights the importance of communication and mutual agreement in a marriage, especially when it comes to decisions that impact both partners. Another important aspect is the burden of caregiving. The wife was left to handle most of the caregiving responsibilities while also working from home. This situation underscores the unfair distribution of family duties and the necessity for mutual support in a marriage. The husband's controlling behavior, such as taking her car keys and hiding her passport to force her to stay home, is another critical point. This behavior is indicative of controlling and abusive tendencies, which is a serious issue that needs to be addressed in relationships. The story also raises questions about the rights and responsibilities within a marriage. It is crucial to ensure that decisions are made fairly and that both partners' opinions are respected. The lack of support from the husband's family in assisting with the niece's care is also notable. This situation highlights the importance of family and community support when caring for individuals with special needs. Finally, the wife's decision to pursue divorce after enduring significant stress and emotional strain is a critical aspect. It reflects the severity of the issues and the impact on the family relationship. Overall, this story touches on several important themes, including communication, fairness in caregiving responsibilities, recognizing and addressing controlling behaviors, and the importance of support from family and community. It provides valuable lessons on the importance of mutual respect and support in a family. What about you? Please comment below to let me know your thoughts on this issue, or other more interesting issues in the story above.
Am I the asshole for deciding to divorce after discovering that my wife had a tattoo of another man's name while I was away? My wife of 4 years got a tattoo recently with her best friend who has a very aggressive type of bone cancer. She didn't discuss it with me at all. I just did it while I was on a training mission. Came home Monday morning to her with his name tatted on her neck with a Pokemon. I have not returned home since I saw it. I have been sleeping in the barracks. I am honestly thinking about just filing for divorce. Am I wrong? Edit. I have heard from a few of my neighbors that she basically moved him in for the 6 weeks I was away on a training mission. And left a few days before I returned. She is refusing to even discuss it. All she keeps saying is it has nothing to do with me and her. Update 1, she was served divorce papers yesterday at our previous home together. She thought it would be a good idea to involve both our families without giving them a reason or context. I filed for divorce after I got home from my last training mission. So as the parents called, I told them about the tattoo and her moving him in while I was gone. And let them deal with her. Relevant comments OP added in the comments. Spoke with my CO about it. He said I should just let Jag handle the paperwork. And he will have me in a new duty station by Monday. He said a man can't live with that level of disrespect, and I agree with him. Comment 1, what did you say to her when you first saw it? And how did she react to you? OP, I asked her what she did. And she said I got a Pokemon tattoo and showed me. I saw his name on her neck, and I just went quiet and picked up my bags and walked back on base. Went and saw my CO and had a drink with him. Comment 2, if my partner puts any other name on his body than my kids, his family or me, it's a problem. They could have done a tattoo without a name and on a place that isn't so out of the open. The tattoo on itself isn't an issue, but the name and place is. OP, exactly. It hurts that she turned me down last year about getting matching tattoos to just get one with her Pokemon Go buddy. But it's not the tattoo that is the complete disrespect and disregard that it's a constant symbol of. Update 2, got all my ducks in a row as they say. Sat down and spoke with my future ex-wife. She honestly expects me to just step aside and let her play house with her friend. Pause our marriage, wait till they are done, then continue our life together like nothing happened. I can't live with her plan, so I'm getting divorced. Wasted nearly 6 years on her already, not wasting any more of my life on her. Will be in my new duty station by the end of June. A fresh start I hope, and put all this behind me. Relevant comments. How has his wife tried to reconcile? She has been endlessly trying to just communicate with me. After she failed to contact me personally, she went to our parents and siblings, and when that failed, she started contacting friends and people in my unit, spouses of people in my unit. She is absolutely relentless, and it's always the same bullshit about how this is just temporary because he is not long for this earth. And I would do the same thing for a terminally sick friend. What does her family say about everything? No, they are not at all pleased. At first, her parents came at me because all she told them was I left her out of the blue after returning from a training mission. I told the truth about how she got a neck tattoo with her friend's name and had him living in our house while I was on my training mission. Update 3. This morning, my commanding officer pulled me from a training flight to inform me of my wife's death and got me on a flight back to North Carolina. Should arrive at my parents' house in about 8 hours. A month ago, I filed for divorce and changed duty stations and cut her completely out of my life. I didn't want to hear how this thing with her friend James was temporary and how our marriage would go back to normal after he passed. I am not suicidal or anything like that, but I am profoundly saddened. I keep thinking how 6 months ago we were happy and in love. And now she took her own life when I just didn't accept what she was doing for a friend who was dying from cancer. I am riddled with self-doubt and blaming myself for her actions. Thinking about everything and our parents having been friends for decades, she is now dead in the water, another victim of her delusion. I know these were all her choices but still feel guilty for her death. I don't know if hell is real or not, but I hope James ends up there for what he has caused. Update 4. Had a meeting with the funeral home today. She already set most everything up and paid for it a little over a week ago. We are having a memorial service at my in-laws' house on Wednesday. Her ashes will need to be picked up in a few days. I have a grief counseling session on Friday morning. Relevant comments. Comment 1. I'm sorry for your loss. Did she ever admit to cheating? I might have missed it. OP. A week or so ago my mother called me and confirmed she was almost 3 months pregnant, so that confirmed she was sleeping with him when I was away for 6 weeks. Comment 2. Wait a sec. She was taking care of a friend with cancer and you lost your shit over it, causing a divorce, and that plunged her probably into a depression and she took her life. Sounds like you were the problem here, not so much her. OP. Not exactly. She hit the pause button on our marriage so she could play house with him while I was on a training mission in California. Without informing me. Was pregnant with his child when I came back and wasn't going to tell me. If it wasn't for the stupid tattoo she got with his name, I might have fallen for it. And slept with her, and she would have had me raise his child as my own. Comment 3. Oh, what a jerk. I'm so sorry. Now I think your wife committed suicide to join him in the other life. Probably both went to hell for their selfishness. OP. I'm not sure if he has passed or not. Pretty much left and crawled under a rock for the last few weeks. Comment 4. I was wondering if James was still alive. Did you say how your wife? How do I ask without sounding rude? Killed herself. OP. Found out she wrote 10 letters to different people, including me. Then she emptied the medicine cabinet while her family was out. They came home, and she was in her bed and had passed away. Comment 5. What was the nature of her relationship with him? Was she giving him palliative care or having an affair with him? OP. He was still active as in up and around hell as of last week. He was still working at the card shop, I was told. So we'll say an affair.
Am I the A to ask my husband to block his female friend who warned him not to marry me? She has no right to interfere in our wedding. I, 26 female, want my husband, 27 male, to immediately block one of his friends, Kyla, 27 female. He thinks I am overreacting, and wants opinions from some cool-headed people on if I'm just acting crazy, or this is something that would cross the line for you. My husband has a group of 8 friends he has been close with since his college days. Kyla is one of his friends. When my husband and I started dating, he introduced me to all of them, and everyone was very friendly. I used to hang out with them frequently. I am an introvert, and so is my husband. I would always ask him to spend time alone as being in social settings just saps all my energy away. His friends, and especially Kyla, always made it a point to tell me how he hangs out with them less after he started dating me. Kyla also had a weird energy around me. If I was with my husband, she would be the friendliest with me. However, as soon as he walked away, she acted like I did not exist. My husband hates to be touched by others. We both are neurodivergent, but Kyla would always tease him by trying to hug him, mess his hair, etc. I never felt she was flirting with him, but just teasing him to make him annoyed. Overall, she just feels like a person who has a severe social boundary issue. We got married 2 years ago, and things have been great between us. Last week, we had our second marriage anniversary and invited a bunch of people. His friends stayed back after all the guests left, and we were all drinking and chatting. One of his friends, Jen, became a bit tipsy and started complimenting me on how beautiful our house is, how I care for my husband, and how he has changed for the better since marriage. Everyone was laughing at my husband at how much of a slob he was when he was single. Jen then pointed at Kyla and said, "You better pay up, 'cause you had bet that their marriage would not even last for 2 years. Everyone became silent and started changing the topic. I also did not want to spoil the mood, and let it go, but it stuck in my head. After everyone left, I asked my husband what Jen was talking about. He also had noticed Jen saying that and was ready with a full explanation. He told me the story of what happened when we got engaged. When he proposed to me, he had not told his friends that he was going to do that. We went on a trip to Puerto Rico, and he surprised me there. We put our engagement pictures on Instagram while we were on the trip, and it was a big surprise to everyone as we were only dating for 1 year. When he came back and met all his friends, everyone congratulated him. However, Kyla started ranting about how he was a fool to propose so quickly, and she felt that I was not the right girl for him. Seems like she said some unkind things about me, implying I was a gold digger. My husband's family is wealthy, but so is mine. She had said that she bet we would break up within 2 years if we got married. That is why Jen was taunting her about how happy my husband was with me. I was very furious at this point, as I feel this is something he should have told me. I asked him to tell me truthfully if he had ever dated Kyla or had any history with her, as he has always told me that he has never dated anyone from his friend group. He said that he has of course not dated or hooked up with Kyla. However, Kyla had asked him out a few times when they were in college, and he always politely declined. I asked why he said no to her, and he said he just does not have any romantic feelings for her. I can see that because my husband does have a type based on me or the other people he has dated in the past, and Kyla is the opposite of that. I am just mad at her for saying bad things about me, especially after knowing that we were already engaged and betting against my marriage. I told my husband that he needs to minimize contact with Kyla and she is not invited to parties at our house anymore. He feels I am being too harsh for something she said almost 3 years ago. He also pointed out that she has been very supportive to both of us, and also helped a lot during our wedding arrangements. He feels she is just blunt and forthright when she speaks, but does not mean those things. He told me to take some time and calm down, and we would revisit this topic in a week. He is worried this will completely change the dynamics within his friend group. Am I the A for wanting him to block her and stop inviting her to our house? Do you think I'm overreacting? I think betting against our marriage and bad-mouthing me behind my back seems like a huge betrayal. I am also mad at my husband that he kept this fact from me, and also never told me that Kyla asked him out during college days. Am I just being crazy and reactive? How would you react in this situation? I don't want to distance my husband from his friends, but I also do not want to see that bitch Kyla's face again. Relevant comments. Commenter. Info. How has Kyla acted since the wedding? Has her behavior changed? You describe a bad behavior in the past tense, so one might believe she's not doing those things anymore. Does she still exhibit boundary issues with your husband? OP. Yes, her behavior with my husband has not changed at all after marriage. However, she is the same with all other friends too. With me, she is fake nice, where she acts like we are best friends in front of my husband, and barely talks to me when he is not around. Commenter. What did he think when you told him that she's totally different when he leaves? OP. He just says she does not know you that well, just ignore her. She has never said anything negative to my face. However, as a girl, you just know when someone does not like you. It's hard to explain to him that it's your feeling and not based on anything she has specifically said or done. Commenter. On blocking her. Especially with the physical contact too. She's so clearly into the husband, and the fact that he's not shutting it down means he likes the extra attention from her. It's one thing to get a friendly hug or maybe an occasional touch on the shoulder from a platonic friend, but shit like playing with his hair. That is 100% flirty behavior. And the fact that he's not shutting it down himself is gross. OP. I have to reply here. So my husband is physically allergic to people touching him. He has a startled response, either he jerks them away or tenses up, when someone hugs him and his face turns red. The weird thing is he can hug his parents or sister and does not get the reaction. He never had that issue with me, even when we first started dating. However, even if my sister or parents hug him, he gets that response. So the fact that he shuts down any touch from Kyla is an understatement. Mini update in comments. Just remembered about my post and logged into the account after many months. Things were really horrible for the last few months and that bitch Kyla almost ruined my life. I don't even know how to describe it. I might write about it next week as I saw a lot of messages asking for an update. I just want other women to be careful of such snakes. Update post. I had posted almost 6 months ago regarding my husband's friend Kyla betting that our marriage would not last for more than 2 years. I was upset and had asked my husband to stop talking to her, because she disrespected our marriage. Since then, Kyla has pulled some really pathetic shit to stir up issues between my husband and I. After I wrote the post, my husband was trying to convince me that Kyla was just joking when she made those comments, and it happened so long ago. Kyla messaged me the next day apologizing for her comments and also not making more efforts to connect with me. I accepted her apology and started warming up to her. She started inviting me for brunches and girls' night out with them and I felt included in their friend group. One day during brunch, I brought up why Kyla really thought our marriage would not work out. Kyla told me that my husband broke up with his long-term ex-girlfriend Joanna 2 months before he started dating me. I knew that part, but Kyla told me that my husband was really heartbroken after the breakup and swore to her that he would stay away from dating anyone. When he met me, my mom set us up on a blind date. She was surprised how quickly we hit it off. Kyla thought that I was his rebound relationship, but when he proposed to me within a year, she was worried that he was making a very rash decision. My husband's family is rich, and she thought it was unwise for him to marry so quickly without knowing me well. She did not know enough about me and that my family is also very well off. That is why she was concerned that I was taking advantage of his vulnerable state. She apologized to me and said that it was wrong for her to assume that, and over the years, she has seen how happy we are together. I appreciated her honesty and Kyla and I became good friends since then and started hanging out more frequently. Around 2 months ago, my husband went to a conference in Seattle for 3 nights. After he came back, I got a "Hey girly" message on Instagram from Joanna, his ex. She told me that my husband contacted her a few months ago and they met in Seattle during the conference, and she could give me more proof if I wanted. I went through my husband's Instagram, but he seems to have blocked her. I made a mistake of mentioning it to Kyla, as she was the only person honest to me about Joanna and she went into detective mode to help me. She was still friends with Joanna on Instagram, as they all went to college together, and opened her profile. The message sent to me was from a different profile, with no followers. We checked her photos, and we saw that she attended the same conference as my husband did in Seattle. Kyla suggested I should ask Joanna for more proof and also ask my husband about the same before assuming the worst. I asked my husband if he met Joanna, and he said yes. He told me he just met her in the expo hall and chatted with her for a few minutes. I asked him why he did not mention it to me, and he told me it was just a quick conversation, and he did not think too much of it. He asked me how I knew it, and I told him that Kyla mentioned that she saw her pictures at the conference, and I thought he might have seen her. I messaged Joanna again to share more proof. She told me that they have been chatting for the past 2 months and plan to attend the conference together. She shared a log of their messages, where my husband was actively flirting with her. The screenshots did look legit, but I did not see any of those messages in my husband's Instagram profile. I talked to Kyla about it, as I did not know what to believe. I messaged Joanna to tell us what happened between them. And she told me that he invited her to the room at nights and they hooked up, but she does not have any photos as he insisted. They do not take any pictures together. I immediately realized it was fake and messaged Joanna to fuck off. She kept on insisting they were telling the truth, and she spent the nights with my husband in his room on all 3 nights. I told her that my husband and I were playing video games, Sea of Thieves, for almost 2-3 hours each night after his dinner, as that is what we do to catch up when he is away. Unless Joanna was sitting behind him watching us play until he fell asleep, she was full of shit. I also told my husband about the whole incident and he told me I should have come to him sooner. He told me that he has gone no contact with Joanna ever since they broke up and he just ran into her at the conference. He told me I could check his phone and everything to verify that he has blocked her everywhere. I told him I do not need to, and Joanna might have run into him and just decided to fuck his life by making up stuff. When all the friends met that weekend, my husband and I told everyone about how Joanna sent messages to me and faked everything. Kyla was also telling what happened as she had told her about it. Kyla accidentally let it slip out that it's luckily, we are nerds and played video games at nights before sleeping, else, props go to Joanna for making up a convincing story. I never told Kyla about the video game stuff. I just told her Joanna is full of shit and I blocked her. It took me until I came home to connect the dots. I told my husband about it and he confronted Kyla. She denied it and told him that I told her about the video game stuff on a phone call, but I don't remember doing it. We have since decided to keep our distance from Kyla. Kyla has called me multiple times to meet up, but I just make up reasons that I'm busy. I do not know why she did it, but at this point, I am not interested in it, and we have decided to just see her on social occasions and avoid hanging out with her as much as possible. I feel stupid that she played me for a fool, and I should have not gone to her when Joanna started messaging me. In hindsight, it seems suspicious that Kyla started telling me about Joanna and at the same time, Joanna claimed to have an affair with my husband. I do not know what her intentions are, but I am mad enough that I will avoid her as much as possible. I wish I had some real proof that she was the one messaging me, so that I could expose her. I also feel bad for suspecting my husband. But I am glad my husband and I are on the same page now. Relevant comments. Commenter, does your husband also believe that Kyla made up a fake Instagram account, pretending to be Joanna? Because that's pretty psycho behavior. OP. Yes. He believes me because I told him that I never told Kyla why I thought the account was fake. It's possible she guessed it if I ever mentioned to her that we play video games at night, but it seems suspicious she would guess that was exactly the reason why I realized the account was fake. Commenter, why didn't you try to message her real Insta since you knew the one she used to message you wasn't her main? Why not message her main account? That would have cleared it up pretty quick, I would think. Commenter, why didn't you try to message her real Insta since you knew the one she used to message you wasn't her main? Why not message her main account? That would have cleared it up pretty quick, I would think. OP, her Instagram was private. I did not want to follow her as it would have looked really bad for me to add her, when my husband has blocked her. The only way I could see her Instagram was when Kyla showed it to me on her phone. To another commenter, trust me, I thought about this. Firstly, I will look crazy if I reach out to Joanna, my husband's ex, behind his back. Secondly, even if it was her messaging me, she would just lie and tell me it was not her. I also cannot disregard the fact that I started getting messages a week after my husband ran into her and told her that he was happily married to me. I have to accept that Kyla, if it was her, will get away with the BS. We do not have any proof it was her, and all we could do is distance ourselves from her. Commenter, Why did you lie to your husband about the fact that this woman had messaged you in the first place? You are the problem here. OP, agree, I should have told him right away. I tried to be sneaky to know if he really met her at the conference. I was half expecting him to deny it if he was trying to hide something happened. I think I let my insecurity get the worst of me. Lessons learned. Commenter, did he bring a gaming PC or Xbox with him to a work conference? OP, we both use Steam Decks to play games together when he is away.
My ex reached out to me after a year of my husband's accident. Am I the A for lashing out at him and saying he's not my baby's father? June 25, 2024. I am 34 years old and have been with my husband for over 12 years. We had our child when I was 31 and my husband was 33. Tragically, about a year and a half ago, when our baby was around 2 years old, my husband, the love of my life, died in a terrible accident. A careless driver hit his car on a foggy, slippery road, and he died instantly in the crash. His death left me devastated. The only thing that kept me somewhat sane was our daughter. I couldn't believe I had lost him. He was my rock, my light, and I loved him dearly. In many ways, I still can't believe he's gone. I'll let my ex explain. My spouse contacted me a year or so after his injury, maybe just to vent. We split up a long time ago, even before I met my husband. Although we weren't precisely buddies, we maintained a good relationship and occasionally chatted, asking each other how they were doing. So, as a buddy, he reached out and offered to assist. Although it came as a surprise, I agreed to it since, to be honest, I didn't have many close friends save him and I desperately needed a friend. Every now and then he would stop by our house with gifts for my daughter, and we would talk over a drink or some tea. It wasn't close. I told him that I wasn't ready for any new connections after losing my spouse, and over the years, he had a number of casual encounters. I suppose I'm not quite ready yet. He was quite kind to my kid, so I didn't see anything wrong with them bonding. He came over once or twice a month. However, my child then began phoning my former father. It really irritated me, but since she's still a toddler, how was I meant to tell her to stop? I doubt she comprehended when I tried to gently explain to her that my ex isn't my father. So when my ex came over, I just started sending her to my mom or my husband's parents. To be honest, I'm sure our child won't remember her father. All she will have of him are pictures. And I don't want her to see another man as her replacement. Thus, everything returned to normal. When I informed my ex that my daughter wasn't home, I could see that he was angry. I didn't give it much thought though. And that's when I lost it the last time. I may have been the asshole in that situation because I yelled at my ex in the end when I should have handled it better. My mother sent my daughter home early from his visit since she was acting quite unhappy and wanted to go home after we played some video games and had a few beers. He got up and said, "This is my baby, I've missed you," to my daughter. And extended a hug toward her. That's where I snapped at him. I told him angrily that he is in fact not her father, and that she is my and my husband's baby and will never be his baby no matter how much he wants it. And if he wants to have a child, he still has plenty of chances with his girlfriend. He told me I was a real for saying such cruel things and left. My mother told me that I was kind of an asshole too and I acted like a child. So am I. Relevant comments. Commenter, no assholes here. I think you took some unresolved trauma out on him, and also that him calling your kid his baby was pretty clueless since he presumably will not be her father. He's more of an uncle, if we want to use family terms at all. I think you should apologize even though he was also wrong, assuming you want to be friends and have him in your kid's life. Hopefully he will understand that it is a sore subject for you right now and parts of it will obviously be a sore subject forever. OP, thank you. I think you're right. I still take everything concerning my husband to heart and my ex's words hit very close to home. I don't think I was wrong in what I said to him, but I was wrong in the way I said it. After thinking about it for some time, I think I do want him in my and my daughter's life. He is a very good friend and very supportive, especially in my time of need, so I shouldn't have lashed out at him. I think I'll try calling him to apologize and communicate my issues clearly. Maybe he didn't even mean anything by his words and just loves my baby and expressed it a bit clumsily. But I admit his words really triggered me at that moment. Commenter, nah. You are still heavily grieving the loss of your husband. You should, in my opinion, apologize to him and explain your thoughts. He can accept the apology or not. If you're not currently in therapy, you should really consider it. I have a friend whose son's dad passed away when he was 3. Same thing. Only pictures and basically no memories. OP, thank you for your advice. I believe you're right. I should apologize and clearly explain my feelings to him. I didn't express my concerns earlier, and then I exploded unnecessarily. I need to set some clear boundaries with him and explain that I'm still hurting and don't want him to call my daughter his baby in any way. If he's okay with it, that'll be great. If not, then I won't have a choice but to stop speaking to him for my own sake. I'm in therapy right now, and while it's a lengthy process, it's good. And my deepest condolences for your friend's son. Commenter, since you have a baby, You will need to enact clear boundaries with him. It's possible that given you two's romantic history, he doesn't realize he's crossing lines. But once you let these boundaries be known, it's up to him to follow them and you to enforce them. Don't let him bully you. You're the mom and dad to your baby. OP, you are right. My first priority is my baby's well-being. Although some of my relatives say a child needs a father figure, I think that's nonsense. If I meet a nice man who is at least as great as my husband, then maybe. But it should be on my terms and not forced onto me and my baby. Commenter. If he only came back into your life because of the baby, I think there is something going on here. There are tons of bad people out there who insinuate themselves into single moms' lives to get access to the kids. Protect your daughter. You don't need your ex. You dumped him for a reason already. OP, I'm not really sure if he has some ulterior motive about my baby. Maybe he's too projecting some unresolved issues, maybe not. He's generally a good person and a good friend. But you're right, he was a terrible boyfriend. We were very young and our relationship was clearly toxic. However, we later talked and decided that we are much better as friends than as lovers. However, after writing this and giving it some thought, I realized that I should first apologize for yelling, and then, second, create some firm boundaries between him and my child. He has the right to reject that, but in that case, we will not communicate. Commenter. Not the A, and this seems to be some ploy on his part to get back with you and has extended to creating a relationship with your daughter. OP. I don't think he wants to get back with me, though I'm not completely sure. We broke up for a reason. We were young and foolish, and our relationship was entirely toxic. He's a good friend though. Sometime after the breakup, which was surprisingly calm, we talked and decided to stay in touch. We weren't close friends, but we were friendly. He was very supportive after my husband's death and helped me a lot. I won't deny there's a bit of nostalgia about the times we were together, but it's more of a running joke now. We can say, do you remember when we were together? So and so happened, and we laugh. I definitely do not want him as a partner. He was a terrible boyfriend. And judging by his behavior with his numerous girlfriends, that hasn't changed. He initially didn't express any interest in having children, but maybe he's projecting some of his own issues onto my daughter. Commenter. This whole situation is bizarre to me. I don't understand why you'd allow your ex this much access to your kid. I understand needing the support, but the situation is suspicious as fuck to me. In general, not the A. OP, thank you for your input. You're right, I believe I was wrong for introducing them at all. I was a wreck and needed support, yes, but my priority should be my child. First year after my husband died, a lot of people came over to offer condolences and some help, my and my husband's family. My daughter was always by my side. She once called my husband's brother Papa, but they look so much alike that it is understandable. And I kinda miss the fact that my ex's visits and gifts can be a problem. I was too late to understand that I need to set clear boundaries, and it is inappropriate for them to bond if I do not want any relationship besides friendship with my ex. On the term Papa, thank you for your input. I didn't mention it in my post, but we are European and the term Papa is actually more common here. Maybe it wasn't even his intention and he did it subconsciously. I was in the wrong to scream and yell, but we definitely need to set some clear boundaries if this friendship is gonna last. OP is voted not the A by top comment, but comments are heavily mixed with no assholes here. Update, same post, June 27, 2024, 2 days later. First, I wanted to say thank you to everyone who offered condolences, advice and criticisms. I appreciate it very much. I believe some context and explanation are necessary. My husband and I had a very close friend group, and we usually hung out at our place because we have a sort of playroom with a PS5, a good PC, VR, board games, and a D&D table. We are big fans of gaming in many forms. Sadly, our friends moved to different countries over the years one by one, and after my husband died I was left with only one friend from the group nearby. But she's a young mother too and we can't hang out like before. We still speak but it's not been the same. So I wanted some familiarity when my ex appeared. I was vulnerable and allowed things to escalate too much. I desperately wanted to have a friend who shares similar interests with me and my husband. So I was blind to some red flags and my own wrong choices. Also, I never left my ex alone with my daughter for more than a couple of minutes. I was wrong to introduce them in the first place. Now to the update itself. Yesterday evening my ex came by unannounced and uninvited. I was a little worried, but thankfully my husband's brother and his wife were at our house with their kids on a playdate. So I asked them to watch over the kids for some time and went to talk with my ex outside. He was drunk. A lot. He started talking and he said a lot. In a nutshell, he said that he will always care about me, that he suppressed some feelings for all these 15 years and he just realized that he was a fool to let me go. I admit I do care about him too, but not even remotely in a way I care about my husband. So I was a fool to hope we can be friends and have a civil relationship without any implications. Our conversation became heated and we argued, with many accusations being thrown around. My brother-in-law came out of the house, bringing our large, overprotective dog with him. So I quickly apologized to my ex for leading him on and told him to move on and asked him to leave and never return. I was a bit worried that things could get violent, but he left without any protest. He later posted long and vague posts about being hurt and that love is shit, and he is better off alone, and tagged me and several of his other exes. Not sure how his girlfriend may react to that, but it doesn't really matter anymore. I blocked him everywhere and hoped he wouldn't appear in our lives anymore. Also, I will update my security system as soon as possible just in case. Spot on comments. Commenter. I watched a TikTok this morning by a woman who took something for relief after several days of constipation. Then she went commando in a sundress to Walmart, where she trusted what felt like gas only to shit on the floor. And somehow that dude vague booking his feelings and tagging his exes is still the most embarrassing experience relayed to me today. Replier, I don't believe that lady. I suspect she went to that Walmart commando just to shit on the floor to try to get away with it. I had a friend that worked at both Walmart and Target. The amount of people that decide to take a dump in areas like the fitting room will blow your mind. Like to the point where if you were in a fitting room, there is a good chance that a minimum of 5 different people have taken a shit in that fitting room at 5 different times. Commenter. I had forgotten about this until I read your comment, but when I was a kid, my great aunt was telling us about going to Walmart once and discovering that someone had taken a shit in one of the purses there. My mom also almost stepped on a human turd on the floor once at a different Walmart in the entry area. What is up with people pooping everywhere at Walmart? I hate that place. Commenter, my ex-coworker told me a story about a woman who was bouncing in a shoe aisle one time. My coworker was called to the front of the store and forgot about her. Coworker was later going around the department to straighten up and went into the fitting room where she found a lone child's rain boot. She went to pick it up and discovered pee in it. She went up front and they checked the cameras. That bitch, instead of going up front to the restrooms, waited till she was gone, grabbed the boot off of the shelf, jumped into the nearby fitting room and did her business. People are nasty. Commenter. I used to work in a retail shop, and when I moved to a new city I started working at the local branch there. At the first branch, such incidents were never a problem. In 2 years, the only issue we had was a toddler having a spectacular accident. Without going into too much detail, the child was wearing shorts and tried to run away afterward, spreading the mess everywhere. The mother apologized profusely, helped clean up, and even called customer service to thank us for our kindness. However, at the second store, people would have inappropriate bathroom incidents at least once a week. I could never figure out why there was such a difference. Both stores were part of the same chain, located in very similar cities and neighborhoods in terms of socioeconomic status, with comparable public toilet availability nearby. The customer bases seemed superficially similar. It made no sense to me.